And I'm a manager of client services for AEDC's Arkansas Manufacturing Solutions. And on behalf of our team, I'd like to welcome you to our Leader Starter Kata webinar, and thank you for being willing to share your time with us this morning. We are planning to record this session and make it available to our participants on our website at a later date. So if for whatever reason you prefer not to be part of the recording, please feel free to log off and be assured we will send you a link to the recording when it becomes available. We are also asking to mute everyone's microphones during the slide presentation. And during that time, should you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or technical issues, please reach out to our two Zoom producers, my team members, Keith Gamble and Bob Kucharavi, by way of the Zoom chat. Our agenda is basically three parts. First part is we're going to take a good look at the vital importance of the leader in terms of his or her role in a continuous improvement transformational journey. Second part will be to take a look at the 6 tabs within the Leader Starter Kata Excel workbook. And for those of us who are familiar with Toyota Kata, Mike Rother's Toyota Kata, will recognize the 5 questions, the 4 steps, and the Kata storyboard. We have about 40 slides, should take about 15 minutes, so that should allow us to have about a 15-minute Q&A discussion at the end. And if folks want to stay on and talk about that further, we'd be delighted to do that as well. So with that, allow me to share my screen, and we will get started. So Leader Starter Kata. Arkansas Manufacturing Solutions is a program of the Arkansas Economic Development Commission. And basically, we're a team of about 10 people who go out and meet with our clients across the state to understand their challenges and their opportunities. So with that, we So 3 of our clients that we have showcased, if you will, in terms of Leader Starter Kata. I sent this email to everyone along with a copy of these testimonials. But it's been our pleasure to work with these excellent companies. We have Allwell Boats, that's headed up by the executive team of Becky Jackson, Doug Vick, and Zach Jackson. Arkansas Lime, that's headed up by plant manager Nate O'Neill, and Jonathan Sanders with Jason International. Jonathan is their vice president. So these 3 companies have been on the Kata journey with us for some time, and they've been willing to share their thoughts in terms of how the Leader Starter Kata program has been of value to them. So I trust you all have had a chance to see a little bit about that. So again, we meet with our clients, and our first purpose is to understand their challenges and their opportunities. And from this listing, we then are able to provide appropriate world-class concepts and solutions to meet their needs. When it comes to our specific operational excellence program, it centers on training, facilitating, and coaching in specific areas of Toyota Kata, lean manufacturing, and training within industry. It's a triumvirate that we have found to be very powerful. We are actually using that not only with our clients, but with our own NIST MEP Arkansas manufacturing business model as well. Most importantly, however, and regardless of the program that's being offered, continuous improvement always requires the active involvement of the leader. And in order to basically move the team beyond the norm and achieve a more successful outcome. So the focus of Leader Starter Kata is, in fact, on the leader. So if we look at a transformational model, there are 3 components in our operational excellence program. The first is Toyota Kata. For those of us who have read about Kata, it's a very freeing concept. The virtue is that we do not have to begin this journey with the predetermined action item list. We manage the journey with the entire organization, the top leaders, the middle managers, and most importantly, the value adders on the factory floor. And we have the conversation that every day we take a little step. So it's purpose-driven steps that manifest the path on a daily basis. And so we utilize Kata to manage the journey in terms of where are we going. As an aside note, since 2011, it's been our privilege to be associated with Mike Rother, the author of Toyota, along with his extended global community. We've been privileged again to be in attendance to 6 of the Kata conferences, and the next one coming up, the virtual conference, is in March. So not only has AMS promoted Kata to our clients, but we have really used it as a foundational approach to manage our own NIST MEP business model. It's based on our Salesforce platform, and we engage our entire conversation on a weekly basis to talk about where are we going, and we use the 4-step method. If you're interested in more information, this is Mike Rother's website. I encourage you to go there. There's just an enormous amount of slide shares, blogs, videos, quite extensive. The second program that we utilize in our triumvirate, if you will, is lean manufacturing. So based on whatever the given need for a client might be, we have any number of waste reducing and value adding tools that we can bring to bear in order to overcome whatever obstacles they are facing. So we use lean to provide the means in terms of what's going to get us there. And third is, as another side note about lean, from our first exposure back in 1999, probably like a lot of us, our approach has moved from just the standard classroom knowledge transfer to a much more specific factory floor, purpose-driven activity. Based on the identified need that comes out of that Kata discussion, we can then select the best solution in order to achieve the desired outcome. So TWI is the third thing, training within industry. As companies change their processes, as they make improvements in the people and communications areas, as these improvements are made, these changes need to be absorbed into the business model so that they can be sustained. And we use the TWI model, the job relations, job instruction, job methods programs to accomplish that. So again, TWI is used to sustain the gain in terms of how will we maintain that progress. It's kind of a final side note about that. In 2003, AMS began its journey of understanding regarding the TWI model through the guidance of the TWI Institute. And so again, we've not only promoted this with our companies across Arkansas, but we have fully utilized, especially the job instructions model with our own NIST MEP. So again, if you want to look at TWI Institute, that is the website for that organization as well. And again, for any of us who are interested in gaining more information or specific knowledge about any of these 3 programs, all we have to do is Google and we'll find an enormous body of work that's out there. So the leader, in the context of the continuous improvement transformational journey, I think we would agree that it stands to reason that the designated leader is of vital importance. And we can't stress that enough as we go through this program and understand it. The Leader Starter Kata. We at AMS have created an executive coaching program, and we choose to call it Leader Starter Kata. And it's just a simple starting point, a way to engage leaders in the conversation, those who wish to pursue a transformational journey, and especially in today's uncertain world, in terms of where do they begin? How do we go about doing that? So the primary value behind the Leader Starter Kata centers on the fact that it helps the leader think through what action that he or she needs to take in order to achieve the desired results, rather than, in this case, depending on AMS or really any other outside resource to tell that leader what he or she should do. Again, utilizing Toyota Kata's this self-discovery approach, The leader can determine what needs to be done rather than anyone else coming in and stating what should be done. And I think in this manner, the Leader Starter Kata focuses on the essential importance of that leader's ongoing opinion in terms of guiding that transformational journey. So if transformational journeys require a leader, then according to Webster, a leader is one who guides on a way, especially by going in advance, one who directs on a course or in a direction, or one who serves as a channel for. And without the active involvement of a leader, an organization can tend to drift. If any of us have read Alice in Wonderland, or if we happen to be a George Harrison Beatles fan, in Harrison's Any Road song, he makes a quote that kind of rings true for us. If we don't know where we're going, any road will take us there. So without a specific direction, there can be some wandering and wondering. So very important aspect. So let's look at the three words and the meaning behind Leader Starter Kata. In the context of the Leader Starter approach, here's how we see these three words being interrelated. In terms of a leader, that leader may delegate, but they're ultimately responsible for the results. They must attend to their normal standard daily duties, but then they also have to find time to dedicate to addressing obstacles that are inhibiting their improvement above and beyond their normal stated duties. I'm going to refer to our friend Nate O'Neill with Arkansas Lime. In his understanding of Kata, he made a wonderful statement that he would like to spend time working in the wedge. And that simply means that he's dedicating a little extra time beyond his normal duties to take the team to a better direction. And so in terms of this, otherwise, if we don't do this, it becomes business as usual. And we know that firefighting really changes nothing. Starter. Continuous improvement journeys often can resemble what we call industrial whack-a-mole. And that's when we see teams reacting rather than responding. A reaction really doesn't take any thought, whereas a response does take careful consideration as to what do we need to do to overcome challenges and opportunities. So the conundrum, if you will, of where do we begin can be somewhat paralyzing. The journey of Kata is navigated, and the path is manifested daily with what Mike Rother calls a compass rather than a predetermined roadmap. And it does start with the first step. For us, this was a very freeing concept. We've done a lot of value stream mapping in the past, and perhaps many of us have. And as we recall, we used to do the current state map, we'd generate the future state map, and then we'd make a long action item list of all the things that we were going to do. So the updated thinking, if you will, is let's set that aside and let's just take it one step at a time, and let the path manifest itself accordingly. And then Kata. In Kata, most continuous improvements, unfortunately, fail to sustain. And so the disciplined routine of Kata is the antidote to this failure. And again, the definition of Kata, when we look into it, is really about a disciplined routine, doing the same thing over and over in pursuit of excellence. So that daily purpose-driven activity, it does maximize our resources and focuses on what needs to be done in pursuit of improvement. So Leader Starter Kata is based on Mike Rother's 4-step Toyota Kata model. Step 1, the challenge. What we want to do is define a 12-month challenge that's in line with some futuristic vision. And we do that by completing the statement, in 1 year, wouldn't it be great if we could, and then actually writing down the words and associated metrics to describe that future condition. It's kind of like the Back to the Future thing where we're fast forwarding and we're imagining what success looks like, and we're using words to explain that. The second step is the current condition. Based on that challenge statement then and the associated metrics, where do we stand? we want to determine our relative current condition. Where are we today? And as we can see between 1 and 2, that becomes the gap. Step 3 is the target condition, realizing that the challenge will not be achieved in one fell swoop. We want to set a 1-month target condition that's in line with that challenge. And then finally, we want to experiment. We identify obstacles. We sit back and say, what's keeping us from achieving our short-term target condition? What are those things that are in the way? We call them obstacles. And when we're done, we simply select one and we begin to conduct small daily experiments to close the gap. So in essence, Toyota Leader Starter Kata is just a 4-step continuous improvement methodology in pursuit of a well-defined challenge that's utilized by a designated leader to confirm progress and effect cultural change on a daily basis. So why would Leader Starter Kata be important? Why would it be important? Well, in order to maximize the value of available resources, our manpower, our cost, everything that we have available, we want to ensure that we are working on the right things at the right time for the right reason. Second, in order to break through that business as usual paradigm, we want to make sure that we work on things, again, above and beyond the normal duties. We want to avoid the entropy. We want to avoid falling back. And so this working on things above and beyond our normal daily duties help ensures that. And finally, by virtue of title and responsibility, that assessment of the leader must be considered at all times to ensure and validate that progress is being made toward a challenge based on that responsible leader's assessment. So how do we improve? Well, improvement takes time, and there are maybe 3 distinct approaches, if you will, that could be utilized. The first is projects. Projects involve a few people, and they typically take a long time to complete, but they generally, hopefully, generate substantial improvements. So projects is one way. Kaizen events is another way. Kaizen events involve several people. They're usually completed within around a week, and they generate specific point solution improvement. Kata involve all people. That's the leadership, the value adders, the managers, involve everybody in the conversation on a daily basis and generate significant cumulative improvement. So at any given time on a transformational journey, any or all of these approaches could be the right time at the right time the right approach at the right time for the right reason. Transformational journeys are about culture change. So let's take a look at what the culture looks like before that change. Culture change underscores the really vital importance, again, of the leader in effecting good change inside a typical organization. So if we look to the bell-shaped curve to kind of help illustrate the point, we can see 3 group types when we consider team distribution. Early adopters. On one end of the spectrum, we have a small number of team members that we call early adopters. And these are the ones who they're open to all possibilities. They can see the possibilities. They're always willing to consider other ways in order to improve. In like manner, on the other end, we have the cave dwellers, the citizens against virtually everything. They're the ones who, for whatever reason, they're unable or unwilling to consider anything other than the way it's always been done. And then in the middle, we have this big group of wait and see. They're kind of the fence straddlers. That's that large population who are just kind of waiting to see how things go before they commit. Sadly, for many of them, it's just a job, and there's a little bit of apathy involved in that. Leader Starter Kata is intended to help the leader create an impetus to begin to shift that normal distribution to a much more hopeful situation. And again, this is about cultural change, and unless the culture changes, really nothing's going to change. So really important that all three of these sectors, the early adopters, the cave dwellers, and the wait and see, all these within the organization, they're essential and they must be actively involved in order for success to be there. However, convincing people to consider change is difficult because the human condition is naturally resistant to the idea. So, after all is said and done, it seems sometimes like it would be easier to just change people rather than continually trying to change people. But before giving up on any individual in the organization and simply cutting them from the team, we must first create an environment that really provides them a chance to consider a better way. Everybody in the organization has potential value. We all have talent. We are all fortunate to have the ability to add value. And so we want to do all that we can to enable everyone to be able to add that value. And in doing so, allow them to really maintain their position on the team. In that regard, no surprise, it's up to the leader to take that first step in order to basically, again, overcome this entropy and begin to establish positive cultural momentum. And we do that by involving everyone in the team in pursuit of a better way. Potential value. If we think about the position that any of us plays on the team, and those all of us on the call here today, as we think about what it is that we do in our work or our job, whatever you want to call it, when we stop and think about that, what value do we bring to the game? What is it we contribute? Well, in theory, if we get right in our heads about our job, we have knowledge. If we get right in our hands, we have ability. And most importantly, if we get right in our hearts, we have passion. So begin to ask yourselves, as each of us kind of ask our own selves, how do we stack up in each of these three areas? Understanding what it is we're supposed to be able to do as we play our position on the team. What's our value? And this is just an introspective thought, but in terms of our knowledge, in order to do our jobs, we have to have a certain level of knowledge. Where do we think we are individually on a scale of 0 to 10? In 5, it's kind of average. Just because we know how to do our job doesn't necessarily guarantee our ability to do that. So what's our capability or our ability, again, on a scale of 0 to 10, with 5 being average? And what about passion? We get right in our hearts, we have passion. Do we really love what we do? And what does that look like on that simple scale of 0 to 10? So when leaders create an environment that really encourages everybody on the team to come together and truly utilize their collective knowledge, ability, and passion, then that overall result creates some positive energy that can begin to really transform the culture. So when we think about our team members, who do we want on our team? What are the characteristics? What type of people do we want? Well, perhaps as we've learned from Toyota, they hire for attitude and train for aptitude. So if we kind of exponentially value passion above knowledge and ability, then this formula kind of affords us some interesting insights when we think about our team distribution. Let's look at a typical organization where we have all three of the classes of team members. We have Liz. She's considered an early adopter. She's brand new. She can hardly find her way around, and her knowledge and ability are understandably low at a value of 2. But she's on fire. She absolutely loves what she's doing, and so she has a very high passion level. So a numerical indicator could be that her potential value is 65,000. Ralph, on the other hand, he's been with the company for about 15 years. He's moved around a lot. His knowledge, ability, and passion are all kind of average, a little bit complacent, and his potential value currently is at 100,000. Ralph is a wait and see. Jack, on the other hand, is a cave dweller, a citizen against everything. He's been around for about 30 years. He knows every job out there. He can do it all, so he has a high knowledge and ability. However, something has happened along the way and the fire went out. So his passion level, unfortunately, is only a 2. mathematically, his potential value is only 256. However, what would the potential value be if Liz, as an early adopter, if her knowledge were increased from a 2 to a 3, and her ability was increased from a 2 to a 3, and she maintained her enthusiasm? Well, her potential value would have a 26-fold increase. Ralph, who is a wait and see, what if his passion was increased from a 5 to a 6? He would see a 10-fold increase. And Jack, who has been around for a long time, all of a sudden we can get a little spark going with Jack, and he goes from a 2 to a 3 in his passion. Now we're looking at a 16-fold increase. So we can have a lot more fun with math, but let's just make it simple. The point is this: through proper motivation, training, and most importantly, leadership, each team member that's on the team does have great potential value. And that potential value can be harnessed, it can be unleashed, especially given the exponential value of power behind passion. By the way, as long as we're in the game, none of us will ever be a perfect 10 or an absolute 0. What is the tipping point? What does that mean? The tipping point is that point at which a series of small changes or incidents become significant enough to cause a much larger, more important change. That's the definition of Google. We learned in 2009 when we read Mike Rother's book, Toyota Kata, we learned this thing about entropy and how it can occur within organizations when there's a failure to continually push beyond the norm. And entropy basically is that nature tends to revert back to its original form. So little visual here. In Greek mythology, there was a king named Sisyphus. He was the king of Ephyra. And he's kind of a bad dude. Punished for his self-aggrandizing craftiness and his deceitfulness, and he was being forced to roll a huge boulder up a hill, only for it to roll down every time it neared the top, and he had to repeat this action for all of eternity. So as we see it today, tasks that are both laborious and futile are therefore described as Sisyphean. In the real world of continuous improvement, we too often see this proverbial situation in action. So with the same business as usual effort, the rock is pushed expectantly up the hill in hopes of effecting a different outcome. But we come back the next day and find, once again, it's right there at the bottom. Day after day, with the same dogged determination and dedication, we continue this cycle. So it's kind of like the definition of insanity. The challenge, as suggested in the photo, is to somehow reach the top, go beyond that tipping point that you just see on the edge there, and achieve a new level of success. Doing so, however, again, requires a catalyst to initiate and lead that effort that will, in fact, achieve that new paradigm. So enter the leader. Well, about leaders. This guy, Lao Tzu, was an ancient Chinese philosopher who was around the 6th century BCE. And he was kind of a contemporary of Confucius. And here's what he said about leaders. He said, as for the best leaders, the people do not notice their existence. The next best, the people honor and praise. The next, the people fear. The next, the people hate. And when the best leader's work is done, the people will say, we did it ourselves. So through the ages and even to today, this adage seems to continue to run true. A primary purpose behind Toyota Kata is to teach people how to solve problems instead of simply stepping in and solving problems for them. In other words, when the best leader's work is done, the people say, we did it ourselves. Let's return to the normal distribution and kind of look at what this curve looks like after we have effected some good cultural change, some positive cultural change. You can see at the bottom there, the x-axis now kind of points to the right, into the future, the more positive, hopeful direction. So When positive influence occurs under the direction of the best leaders, there is a resultant cultural shift. It kind of goes to the right, and it ultimately builds more early adopters. We can begin to see this small segment has increased. It also hopefully brings that population of cave dwellers down, and maybe some of them to venture out into the light and begin to participate more. And it affects basically the wait and see category as well. The bottom line we are all trying to do is to affect each segment of this population so that they are willing to go into the future with us. And again, the purpose and the importance of that leader. So functionally, how is Leader Starter Kata implemented? Well, step one is to select the focus area. Select the focus process or the focus area. We want to start small. We want to do inch wide, mile deep. We want to kind of go slow to grow fast. Somewhere within the organization, there's an ideal place to begin to establish a foothold. Step two, we want to develop a challenge statement. And again, we imagine a future condition challenge statement that completes the sentence, wouldn't it be great if we could? And then the leader, in this case, would write down and determine when we want to do that. And we think in terms of 12 months. We want to use words. The leader wants to use words to describe exactly what will be accomplished, and then also decide how those results will be measured. Step three is we want to define the current condition. Compared to that 12-month challenge, we want to set that stake in the ground by documenting the current condition. Where are we today against that future challenge statement? Step four, we want to create a target condition. Again, since the future condition isn't going to be accomplished in one fell swoop, we want to take small monthly bites. And these are kind of in line with that 12-month challenge. Step five, we want to identify obstacles. We ask, what's keeping us from reaching our shorter-term target conditions? We call those obstacles. And they're likely going to be in the key areas of process, or people, or maybe communication. Okay? So step number six is to then begin to conduct experiments. We want to select, if we can, one obstacle and start to take mitigating steps by conducting experiments. We want to be very specific in describing a proposed step to be taken. So we write down the words to describe the proposed step, and we also write down the words predicting what we expect from taking that step. Then once we have actually completed that step or that experiment, and we explain what actually happened, and we also write down and share what did we learn, because with that information, that allows us then to continue experimenting on this particular obstacle until we decide that it has been satisfactory or successfully eliminated. So this is kind of a hypothesis. Why should Leader Starter Kata approach be considered? Well, a key hypothesis behind Leader Starter Kata presumes that a leader is sufficiently in touch with his or her team. And in that regard, then based on all that that leader reads, all the data, all the reports, everything, all that the leader sees as he or she walks through the process, and everything that he or she hears, based on all of that, that leader can render an opinion on a simple scale of 0 to 10. And it can be very quickly made in order to determine perceived levels of performance. As that leader walks through and has inculcated and synthesized everything read, seen, and heard, that leader can say, you know what, in the area of quality, I think we're maybe at about a 5. It doesn't matter why, it just means that that leader has put that stake in the ground. Second part of the hypothesis is that, again, these numbers are gut feel. They're estimates. They're not scientifically derived. However, we believe that they do provide a starting point for working on the right things at the right time for the right reason. There's kind of a term that maybe describes this approach, and it's a term called heuristic. Heuristic. And what is it? Well, it's a practical method. This gut feel approach is a practical method that is not guaranteed to be optimal, perfect, or rational, but it's nonetheless sufficient for going ahead and reaching an immediate short-term goal or approximation. The belief is that if all of the available information and all the empirical data were gathered up and examined, the belief is that empirical evidence would probably corroborate on a scale of 0 to 10 the same approach that the leader has. So both the data and the leader's gut feel would have a pretty high confidence level, and it's close enough to get moved on. There's a term out there by a guy named Craig Rochelle. It's called GETMO, good enough to move on. But we don't want to overthink it, get too wrapped around the axle, because as we begin to take the journey, the path is going to manifest and things will change accordingly. So we kind of need a starting point. And in Toyota Kata, we are encouraged to just get started. And we do so in the belief that, again, the path will manifest itself and adjust along the way. So we kind of have the following generic statement is offered as sort of a starting point to help a leader address some of the more important KPIs. So on the left-hand side, we look at blocks of focus. We have process-related things. We have communication-related things, and we have people-related things. And when we kind of look at the key performance indicators in each of these categories, we come up with a kind of a generic statement that we could maybe use to think about where are we now and how might we proceed. So it goes, we provide a product that is of the highest possible quality for the lowest practical cost, delivered with great customer service, with information shared accurately, completely, and in a timely manner, all done safely, with kind regard for the environment, and with a delightful morale. So at this point, can I get an amen and a virtual group hug? I'll take that as a yes. So hopefully, all that's important to us when we look at this can fit under one or more of those categories. Now, depending on the situation, other KPIs could be interrelated, or some of these taken out, something else put in, but what's important to the leader? It all starts with that. So let's look at the details behind the Leader Starter Kata Excel workbook. In the context of continuous improvement, transformation, or journey, it stands to reason that that leader, that designated leader, again, can't say it enough, is of vital importance, and that his or her opinion is essential. So this Leader Starter Kata Excel workbook, we use that on a periodic basis by the leader in concert with an executive Kata coach. And we do that in order to record the progress that the leader feels is being made against the obstacles as determined by the experiments that are being conducted. So this Excel workbook, simple format, just as a repository to gather in and capture and report what's important. So we have 6 tabs, basically 6 tabs. The first tab, I'm sorry, let me back up. These 6 tabs in the Excel workbook constitute the protocol for these weekly discussions. And again, for those of us who are familiar with the concept, we can begin to see that it will parallel the logic behind the Toyota Kata storyboard that we see there. So again, the first tab is the scoreboard. That scoreboard, we'll see that in a moment, it reflects the leader's expectations for the coming year, along with the progress that's being made each month accordingly. The second tab has to do with challenges and metrics. The leader formulates words, very specific, and metrics to describe success for each of these, what we'll call the 9 KPIs. We'll see that here in a moment. Tab number 3, the overall progress chart. It's just simply a monthly target condition progress that's superimposed on the overall challenge chart. So we can visually see, are we tracking with the intended progress? Tab number 4 is the obstacles parking lot. This is a listing of things, obstacles that are keeping us from achieving those short-term monthly target conditions for each of the KPIs. Again, the obstacles parking lot is simply a repository. Step number 5, or tab number 5, is KPI experiments. We also call it PDCA form. It's a plan, do, check, act under the Deming cycle. And this form captures the particulars of each experiment. And finally, monthly explanations. This is a form that the leader can use to explain, pardon me, positive, negative, and neutral changes that occur for each of the KPIs from month to month. It's just an opportunity for that leader to say, here's why I feel like we improved, or here's why I feel like we maybe didn't meet what we had intended. So let's take a closer look at the workbook, and let's do it in the context of that generic KPI starting point that we said was, we make a product, we provide a product of the highest possible quality for the lowest practical cost, etc. If we look at this starting point, the leader starts by filling in the green numbers. So these are the KPIs. There's 9 KPIs that the leader is saying, gosh, wouldn't it be great if by 12/31, I'd like to see our quality be at least at a level of 7. And again, this is all based on the 0 to 10 scoring. I'd like our cost to be at a level of 5. We want to be good stewards of our resources, of our financial support. I'd like to be able to deliver customers to my satisfaction that we're at a 7. When it comes to communicating, I would like to be able to communicate accurately at a level of 6. I would like our completion to be at a level of 5, and I'd like our timeliness to be at a level of 6. When it comes to people, I would like to see our safety be at a level of 7, our environment, which is the air, water, solids, noise, the environment, to be at a level 6, and I would like for our morale to be at a level 6 as well. Overall, come December 31st, 21, when asked, I would like to say that our overall process, our business model, is currently functioning at a level of 6.11. Next step is to come back and identify the red number. This is the current condition. So that same leader, again, all that he or she reads, sees, and hears is corroborated into a number. And the leader in this case on January 1st has said, I believe our quality level is only at a level 5. We're not very good stewards of our money, so that's at a level 2. Our delivery is only a 6. We are not communicating accurately, completely at a level of 2, and our timeliness is only at a level of 4. From a people standpoint, our safety is only at a 5, the environment is at a 4, and our morale is at a 3. Pardon me. Overall, kind of feel like we're at a 3.67. So as we can see for each of these 9 KPIs, they have their own internal, individual gaps. Overall, there's a 2.44 gap that we want to focus on. So the future challenge, is to achieve a challenge condition of 6.11, where the leader can say in 1 year, that's where we are in these overall areas of quality, cost, delivery, accurate, complete, and timely, and safety and environment morale. Pardon me. In like manner, the current condition of 3.67 reflects where the leader feels that the team is as of today, January 1st, against these same criteria. So, closing this gap of 2.44 becomes the primary focus for that leader going forward. So let's take this visual, that's the top portion, and let's expand that to this form. And what we see below this is a monthly scorecard. So come February 1st, the leader will again assess the current condition as of February 1st, and whatever he or she sees will be rendered into those boxes accordingly. It's expanded to capture that leader's actual monthly progress assessment for each KPI. So So these numbers then represent what the leader feels is as of February 1st, and that becomes the new current condition. And we do the same thing in March, April, etc., until we get to our last increment of December, when we were trying to achieve all those green numbers at the bottom. So this signifies the monthly progress along the way. Tab number 2. This is the challenges and metrics tab. We kind of understand that a properly worded Toyota Kata challenge statement, along with the associated metrics, would likely cause some anxiety among the team members. And the reason behind that is that the leader is ultimately responsible for proposing a future condition that's going to require a stretch by the team in order for them to be successful. If that wording is improperly worded, the challenge statement and associated metrics could end up being what we call a mission impossible situation. And that can demoralize the team. At the same time, conversely, a mission simple situation can result in kind of business as usual with no significant growth. So it's really important, critically important, that the leader takes time to sit down and define that future challenge statement and metrics for each of these 9 KPIs. In that way, all 3 levels of the organization, top leadership, middle managers, and most importantly, perhaps the value adders on the factory floor, they can all fully understand and clearly understand what's being expected. So let's look at an example, and let's focus on quality. As it pertains to quality, the leader might ask the team to achieve a future condition by 12/31 that results in a quality level that's holding steady at 7.0. We might remember we saw that on the first tab under the scoreboard, where we were trying to go from a 5 to a 7. And we basically are saying that in this case, this box, our quality level, this is what the leader is describing as success on December 31st, is saying that our quality level for the bottom line is holding steady at a 7.0, with our first pass yield averaging 95% for the past 3 months. So the phraseology of this is unique, and it's such that it provides that proverbial answer that the leader would use, presuming in this case that the leader was successful in quality. The leader would use these words to answer the question of him or her, how are you doing in the area of quality? And again, in this case, that leader would say, our quality level for bottom line is holding steady at 7, with our first pass yield averaging 95, and for the past 3 months. So kind of obvious, and in like manner, that leader needs to provide that same kind of challenge statement and associated metrics for the remaining 8 KPIs, again, in order to ensure that everybody on the team truly understands what's being expected. Some of us on the team may have a different understanding of what do we mean by cost? What do we mean by safety? What do we mean by environment and morale? So again, the leader puts that stake in the ground by defining the words and the metrics to explain what is expected. Tab number 3. Tab number 3 is kind of an overall KPI monthly target condition. And as we see on the chart, the overall challenge gap of 2.44 is just mathematically divided into 12 simple individual target segments. And that goes from on the y-axis from a 3.67 all the way up to 6.11. At the same time, we're trying to achieve this result over a 12-month period. So on the x-axis, we've just laid in 12 months. And we've drawn the blue line in. It's a target. It's what we're, in a perfect world, we would want to be right on it. And we know, of course, that is not going to be the case. So if we look at the legend, that little box there, each month, based on the outcome, the leader would then come in and superimpose another line. If we went from January to February and we made more than expected progress, that line would be shown green. If we happened to be spot on, it would be black. And if we didn't quite make what we'd hoped, that might be red. So again, it's just an overall way of showing progress against the intended target condition. Tab number 4. This is the obstacles parking lot. And we're just showing 3 of the 9 KPIs here. But for each of them, the leader then again sits back and identifies obstacles that are keeping the team from achieving that monthly target condition. And we also include the metrics to the right-hand side. So again, staying with the quality example, in this case, the leader wants the team again to improve from a current condition based on our tab number 1 scorecard. We want to go from a 5 to a 7. And so we begin to ask ourselves, we're at a 5. Now, what's it keeping us from improving? Well, that obstacle statement might be, you know what, not having a method for capturing in-process defects, it's keeping us from making improvements on our first pass yield. In parts per million defects might be an important metric. So as the leader examines and evaluates the other 8 KPIs, cost, delivery, safety, environment, etc., specific wording has to be used in order to identify obstacles that are truly keeping the team from achieving progress in each of those areas. So at this point, we've got maybe a whole lot of stuff there in terms of obstacles. And again, what we want to do is the leader wants to pick one obstacle and choose that one against which the leader can then begin to conduct daily KPI experiments accordingly. Okay, again, at tab number 5, we kind of look at this. This is the form that's filled out. Quality experiments in the upper left-hand corner. This is the wording we use to explain the KPI obstacle. The focus is the boggling line. The coach is AMS. And in this case, Charles is not only the leader, but he is also the learner. The 4 steps on January 1st, Charles suggested that he would meet with the production to discuss how to identify causes for defects. Charles expected that the operators would need to be consulted in order to determine the key categories. He took that step, and when that happened, he wrote down what actually happened. The operators expressed frustration with having to deal with defective parts, and they determined that jams, dies, and wear were the top categories. So the next proposed step was to provide check sheets for the operators, and the expectation was that we would see what categories are causing the most defects. So this PDCA cycles record records those steps. And again, the conversation between the leader, or the learner in this case, and the coach is driven by the 5 questions card. And I know you can't read this, but this is the script that manages the Kata storyboard discussion. The last form is the explanations, and all of this is just an opportunity from month to month, in this case, from January 1st to February 1st, what would the leader put in terms of improvements or changes in any way? If we look at that form in a little more detail, for example, as of February 1st to January 1st to February 1st, the leader might say our quality score improved from 5 to a 5.25 because our defect rate was reduced as a result of operators' input and suggestion. Not only that, but because our quality improvement was improved, we also saw some benefits in delivery, which is no surprise. Sometimes when we work on one thing, other areas benefit as well. In this case, our delivery improved a 1/4 point because we shipped more product as a result of fewer defects. And by the way, our morale score improved because the operators appreciated being included in the quality problem. So, in summary, the primary intention of the Leader Starter Kata is that it be used by the leader. Leader Starter Kata is useful, again, at all 3 levels of the organization, whether it's top leaders or middle managers or value adders. The form can be and function can be used to manage that discussion. It's patterned after Mike Rother's Toyota Kata 4-step method, along with the 5 questions card and the Kata storyboard. And it's an executive coaching session between an organizational leader and a Kata coach. So a quick and easy method on that simple 0 to 10 gut feel rating that helps a leader to work on what's most important. At this point, Keith is going to share a video with us by our friend Thilo Schwartz. Thilo is an international management training person who's been heavily involved with Kata, and he's created a 1-minute video that kind of speaks to the Kata starter. So, Keith?
What are starter kata, you might wonder? Starter kata are structured practice routines that put us on the road to learning fundamentals and developing new patterns of thinking. At first, we should try to practice each starter kata exactly as described until its pattern becomes somewhat automatic and habitual for us. That can take a few weeks of practice, but when we reach that point and have learned through practice to understand the why behind a starter kata's routine, then we can build on it to develop our own style, as long as the underlying pattern of scientific thinking and acting remains. A starter kata helps us to act our way into a new way of thinking, so let's not make the mistake of overthinking it. Just get started with practicing.
Starter Kata. Practice this.
Okay, can everyone hear me and can you see me? I'll take that as a yes. So
I can hear you and see you, Bill.
Thank you. So, sorry again. Okay, so at this point, we would like to open up to any questions, comments, or suggestions. And let's see what we have here. So we have a question. How do you differentiate between effective leaders and supervisory roles? The latter is probably dealing more with structures and regulations, and the former is more inspirational and flexible. In my experience, the combo of leader, supervisor, individual are hard to find. Probably a great question. And again, a simple answer might be that we see leaders at all 3 levels, whether they are at the top level or the middle manager role, which we kind of look at as supervisors, or as value adders on the factory floor. I would hope that from an inspirational standpoint, that virtue, if you will, exists on all 3 levels. So based on the statement that the leader and supervisor individuals are hard to find, I guess we understand that. Anybody have a comment on what was just said there?
Bill, let me just jump in really quick and say we're at 1 hour and we're going to stay on. And those of you who can are welcome to stay on with us for the Q&A.
Thank you. Do some companies use knowledge and ability and passion for hiring? The short answer to that is yes. We have a form that companies use to identify the characteristics of a good employee, if you will. And then against that, they rank those folks based on what they feel is that person's current knowledge, ability, and passion regarding each of those criteria. So yes, we do have that form and companies do utilize it. One comment, Sierra said, we feel like Sisyphus some days, and Sierra, I totally agree with you. And we know what that all means. So thank you.
Only some days?
Only some days. Dilip, thank you. How do you assign mathematical value based on knowledge, ability, and passion? And that is a great question. And again, we simply use the 0 to 10 score with a 5 being an average. We have said all along that nobody will be a 10. Nobody, as long as they're in the game, they'll never be a 10, nor will they be a 0. And this mathematical assignment is simply that evaluator or that leader's assessment of what's going on at the present. So it's a mathematical value based on the gut feel. So where did the potential value calculation come from? Does the industry use this? I will simply say that I've been in the continuous improvement journey with the extended community of practitioners for 25 years. And this knowledge, ability, and passion and 10-point scoring is just simply a way that I've learned to pull things together and maybe help take another perspective or another look at things. Again, this is just my take on the game, and I would encourage us all, and I trust we would, is to think about how do we see things, how do we see the game, and render our own opinion. So it's just this KPIs, this thing, it's been what I've been doing with companies for many years, and it does seem to have a purpose for getting things started. So how do we recommend getting scores for morale? Great question as well. Again, it's simply a gut feel, and like it's being said here, morale is in fact opinionated. So there may be some way that the leader has feedback, some empirical evidence, but since the leader is responsible for the morale, it still becomes his or her opinion, and we score low to grow high, if you will. We don't want to overthink it, but we don't want to presume that everything is wonderful. So the lower the better in that regard, because it causes that leader to do whatever he or she can to improve that number. Let me see here. So I think maybe we're getting to the end. And, yes, that seems to be the end of the discussion, questions, and chats. And again, Keith and I are delighted to stay online here and open up the discussion for any particulars. So I guess at that point in time, we'll turn it over to all of you. And I can do the hand puppet thing or you know, whatever. Okay, presuming that there are no more questions, comments, or suggestions, we may close this out, but we will send everyone that has registered a link to the recording. And in the meantime, we keep an eye, all of us would be delighted to answer any questions, comments, suggestions you have, or discuss this further in any way that we can. So thank you again, everyone, for participating on this, and we're just delighted to be on the journey with you. We remain available to help in any way we can, and we look forward to celebrating your success as well. So with that, have a great day, have a great year. Again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Keith. Have a good one.
Our pleasure. Julio, did you have a question? Julio Lugo?
Julio, I think you're muted.
Yes, I have thanks a lot, Bill. This was great, really. I really enjoyed the presentation. I had some of my members of the team which had not basically registered. I had them also watch the presentation. So I think it was very worthwhile. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, buddy. And please, my best to everybody there as well.
Thank you.
So any other questions, folks? Some of you are muted. If you want to unmute, that's fine.
Bill,
Yes,
I
sir.
meant to ask this earlier and we got a little tight on time. For those who are remaining, what would you say the weekly commitment of time is for a leader to go through the Leader Starter Kata process with you?
So Keith, that's a great question. And we know that within Toyota Kata, in the perfect world, Mike Rother has encouraged us to do a little something every day. In some cases, that's not practical. So for the Leader Starter Kata discussion that we've been doing with our companies, we are on a weekly cadence, and we engage that leader in the conversation to go through storyboard and the book of the playbook. It takes about 15 minutes to do that. Beyond that, then we can talk, but it takes about 15 minutes to go through the book, and we do that on a weekly cadence. So that seems to work well, and it covers a lot of ground.
So we really do have some flexibility. If the leader's tight on time, we can get through the whole coaching cycle in 15 minutes. If they want to do a deeper dive on something, we make that time available to them.
Exactly. Richard, I see you unmuted, buddy. Have you got any questions? Okay.
That's a wrap, isn't it?
All right, team. Looks like we've got about 9 people still on the line, but if there are no more questions or so, then we'll shut it off here, and we will again send this link to everybody for the webinar. And again, thank you for being a participant, and again, Happy New Year. Thanks.